Hi there, I'm Bill Inman. I'd like to talk with you today about an important topic. I'd like to talk to you today about the hearing the voice of your customer if you're in the restaurant business. Restaurants are peculiarly susceptible to the whims of customers. If a restaurant doesn't listen to what the customer has to say, they're going to find out that their business suffers very quickly and very immediately. So let's now talk about how a customer can influence and talk to a restaurant and let their voice be heard. When you talk about restaurants, there are several subjects that you need to address. Some of the subjects that are important to restaurants are the product, the food they serve, dishes, add-ons, etc. The service, their waiters, waitresses, their cashiers, their maitre d's, and other people. The ambience, the the feelings that customers have when they enter a restaurant and eat there, noise, cleanliness, etc., and so forth. And then finally, pricing, that the amount of money charged for the food items is certainly important to all restaurants. If a restaurant wants to thrive, it must pay constant attention to what the customer is saying. That whatever the customer is saying about whatever they're talking about, complaints, compliments, suggestions, these are all important to and vital to the restaurant being susceptible to what the customer is saying. So I don't know if you've ever seen feedback for a restaurant, but I want to read you one. Now, this one was randomly selected out of many that are appear on the internet and other places. But here is a typical feedback from a customer to a restaurant. Caesar salad Parmesan chicken breast. I've ordered a Caesar salad with a Parmesan chicken breast twice now. Both times the restaurant neglected to include the chicken in my to-go order. Also, today I was given dressing that had separated. I called and was told that's just how it was going to be. I love your restaurant, but was very disappointed. Not a good experience at all. So this one is a negative experience. They're not all negative. Many are very positive. But this is what you can find out when you pay attention to what customers say. And if you want to have repeat customers and repeat business, you better pay attention to what they say. The problem is there are many documents to be read, more than a human can handle. It simply is not possible for any human being to sit down and read and make sense of all of the comments that a restaurant can get. So in order to help with this, there is technology called textual ETL. With textual ETL, you take your customer comments, feed them into textual ETL, and create a database. Then you can analyze the database. Now, there's a lot of value to the things that textual ETL does for you, but perhaps the biggest value is the fact that the database effectively has no limits. A database can handle millions and millions of customer comments, something that no human being could ever possibly do. So let's take a typical analysis of what one of these customer feedback analysis might look like. We did one a while back for a food chain, a food organization, restaurant chain, and this is what we found. This was a graph that was created that represented what people were saying. Now, when you look at the graph, we organized the graph according to comments about ingredients, people, place, price, process, product, and promotions. So the first step was to determine what people were talking about. The next step was to determine were the people happy or unhappy. And when you look at the diagram, you see that there's a lot of red. And this might lead you to believe that customers were very unhappy. But that's not necessarily true. You see, when people go into a restaurant and have a good food and good service, they normally don't say anything. It's only when they go into a restaurant and have a bad experience that they register their complaints. We're told by consultants that we work with that it's typical to have an 85% to 15% ratio of unhappy to happy comments. That if your ratios are other than these percentages, then something is going on there. But an 85% to 15% ratio is the normal expectation. So the fact that there's a lot of red shouldn't bother people. But there's some other really interesting things about this analysis that we've done. And let me talk about what those things are. Those things are the fact that nobody said anything about pricing. You see, there was no comments, good or bad, about pricing. Now, what message does this give to management? It gives the message that the corporation, the restaurant chain, is probably not charging enough. Why? Because if there had been charging too much, they'd be hearing about it. But since nobody is saying anything, it means that if the restaurant chain went in and on an item by item basis raised prices from a nickel to a dime to a quarter, that customers would still be just as happy and they would be able to make more money. A second thing, and along the same vein, is the fact that nobody said anything, good or bad, about promotions. Now, this particular restaurant chain does do promotions. Actually, they do a lot of them, but the promotions are having no effect on their customers. What message does this give you? That this gives you the message that the promotions you're doing are very ineffective. And so, is this important information for management? Quite frankly, I can't think of information that is more important. And where did this information come from? This information came from listening to the voice of the customer. That no corporation, restaurants or otherwise, wants to leave money on the table. And no corporation wants to do promotions that are expensive, difficult to do, and are not enhancing their business. So there's a lot of important information that comes out when you listen to the voice of your customer. But there were other pieces of information that came out as well. When you start to get into the actual comments made by the customer, one thing you could do is look at the food items that the customer was being served. We have such things as pesto, Alfredo, Montemori, steak stroganoff, Japanese pan noodles, etc., and so forth. So you can take a look at what people thought of individual dishes. And we'll pick one of them. We could have picked any of them, and to drill down into it. And it turns out that for the pad thai dish, that people were terribly dissatisfied. And it's one thing to say, gee, they're dissatisfied. That's a useful piece of information. But even more useful is, why are they satisfied? And when you drill down even further, you find out that when you look into the negative feedback for pad thai, the number one complaint was the portion size. It could have been anything. It could have been the heat. It could have been too hot. It could have been too sweet. It could have been too cold. It could have been lots and lots of things could be on people's minds, but the number one thing was the portion size. So this is the kind of information that management needs to know in order to please their customers. So when people are saying negative things about pad thai, why are they so dissatisfied? They're dissatisfied because of the portion size. And to do this kind of analysis for restaurants, you find that you look at it and you say, gee, Bill, this looks like this is really complicated and expensive to do. Well, that's not the case at all. That in truth, textual ETL, the ability to read and understand restaurant feedback, is inexpensive, fast, easy, and simple to do. We do it all the time. If you'd like to have further conversations to see what can be done, we'd love to talk with you. We've got all kinds of things that we think you would find interesting to know and learn. So give us a call or contact us through the internet, either way, and we'll be happy to arrange a conversation. We think that you'll find that to be useful. I hope you found this presentation to be useful and interesting. If so, you've made my day. Thank you so much. Goodbye.